For this section, I'm joined by Rhythm Anand Bhardwaj, our legal editor, and we have with us Harish Salve. Rhythm, and very topically today, we want to talk to him about the cabinet approval for the One Nation, One Poll, which is sort of been dismissed by the opposition, but which the government seems extremely keen on. So maybe your first question to him on that.
Yes, Mr. Salve, you were a member of the high-level committee along with everyone else. I just want to ask you on this. You were always a supporter of One Nation, One Election. Today, it's going to become a reality. Shockingly, not so shockingly, the opposition is trying to state it's going to be unjust. They've not been spoken by. Mamata Banerjee's come out very strongly against it, saying it's anti-federal. How do you look at it, sir?
So, one is the politics of the situation, on which I am hardly equipped to comment. But if you look at it from two dimensions, the good sense behind the proposal and the constitutional implications of the proposal, it answers both questions. The good sense behind the proposal is in a number of chapters where the implications of having frequent elections in a state, one state or the other, have been measured in economic terms. Fact of the matter is, and we've just seen elections in Maharashtra. Let's just talk about elections in Maharashtra. Not a single senior member of the cabinet missed, people who matter missed being in Maharashtra. How many days of work of ministries, of functions of vital importance was taken away? Similarly, senior members of parliament of the opposition parties were busy in Maharashtra when maybe they could have been in parliament or their own constituencies. So it is an impact on GDP. Plus you have the model court which comes into play, decisions are not announced. And then now you have this competitive liberalism of freebie culture. Every time there's an election, more and more freebies are announced. There are so many different dimensions. If you have one good consolidated election, and it's a very myopic view to say it's only 5,000 crores or 10,000 crores. That's the cost of the election. But believe me, when you go into the analysis, that's the least relevant factor. It is a relevant factor, it's the least relevant factor. The amount of deployment of civil servants in the election exercise, I know for a fact, so many things get stuck up because some senior officer has been deployed somewhere. Now, if you calculate the effect of all this disruption on the gross domestic product, we have an econometric model done. It makes a difference of 1%. 1% of India's GDP is a massive figure, massive figure. So this is the good sense behind the decision. To say it is against federalism means that the first 3 elections in India were inconsistent with principles of federalism. That's as far as this is concerned. But if somebody reads the detail of the proposals which the committee has made, and it's always open to criticism, if somebody comes up with a formal argument saying it is not consistent with federalism for reason A, B, or C, what the report broadly submits, and it is consistent with the language of the Constitution, which only prescribes the maximum outer limit for a session of for a term of Parliament and a term of a House of Legislature. This has been departed from was an emergency where Congress added 2 years for the then House. But otherwise, there is only a maximum term. Now, consistent with the maximum term, if a provision is made that if a House comes to an end before its maximum term, the next election will be for the balance period. How is that inconsistent with federalism? The Constitution itself envisages that if there is less than 6 months left, you can postpone elections. That is more of an assault on they're more inconsistent in that sense with federalism and having an elected government than having a government for a shorter period. And also, if people are told, if people know that if you go in for a midterm election, then you are going to go through an election for only 2 years, only 2.5 years. It is a deterrent and it lacks stability. Now, these are all the arguments for. The only argument I've heard against is of catchphrases, and unfortunately, my generation is not very good in the one-liners which you see on Twitter. Like one of the leaders of one of the parties said, this is a weapon of mass distraction. Now, that's a very nice expression, but it's distracting from the fact that you have no logical answer to any of the arguments which have been run, and therefore
of
you
course.
will...
But you're pretty certain, I mean, that this cannot go through judicial challenge.
I am reasonably certain that it can't go through judicial challenge. We will be discussing problems with the judiciary in the other interview which you want to have.
And do you think the Prime Minister has the numbers to pull this through? The government has the numbers to pull this through?
See, first of all, you may call people like us incorrigible optimists, but we believe after all the noise and dust is settled, good sense does prevail with human beings.
Yeah.
Now, today's situation, this is something which needs a debate. It needs a national debate. Maybe after 3 years, it becomes an electoral issue, and maybe if the government can persuade the people of this country that this is good for the country and makes it an electoral issue, you will see the tune changing.
Yeah.
So the only argument which I've heard, and I don't understand how it works, but the only argument which I've heard is if you have separate elections for the state, then the Modi factor goes away, or you can focus on the local leaders without getting worried about the bigger picture of the national leader. Now, that's not a constitutional argument. That's
so true.
A petty political argument. It's true or false, I don't know. I'm nobody to comment.
I wouldn't take that seriously at all. I would, in fact, dismiss it. But for that, for your perspective on One Nation, One Poll, big story of the day, thank you very much, Harish Salve. Thank you. Thank you, sir.